Hi, I'm Kimberly Calderbank, and this is Community Cultures. Community Cultures began as a way to shine a light on all the goodness that exists in our community when we gather in support and celebration of one another. We've pivoted a little bit to focus on businesses facing challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we're going to showcase some not-for-profits and charities that are keeping our city and community humming through this time. This is Community Cultures Charitable Champions. Today, I'm joined by the Executive Director of Food for Life Halton, Graham Hill. Thank you for joining me today, Graham.
Thanks, Kim.
You are celebrating your 25th anniversary and started off the year with a big bang, and we're looking forward to celebrations throughout the year. And then in March, we get this big surprise, COVID-19 hits. Tell me a little bit about what Food for Life looked like before COVID-19.
Well, I wish I was celebrating my 25th. I'd be a lot younger and prettier at that point, but my hairline says different. But, at Food for Life, we are the 25th anniversary. I mean, we kind of joke that we've trained for this moment for the last 24 years. We're still celebrating, just in a different way. Our celebration now turns to supporting the most vulnerable and those people who have never reached out to a food program before. Trying to fill the cracks in the system. So that helps other agencies, other charities, along with directly serving individuals who require food supports during this time.
Now, your mission and vision, Graham, are simple: rescuing food, impacting lives. Obviously, that has increased. Can you tell me a little bit about the increase in your services?
Yeah, so right now at our Food for Life neighborhood programs, we're seeing about a 30% increase. Partly because some programs have closed down. They may be in a church or other location that's not operational right now. But we're also seeing a lot of new people who are reaching out for supports. People who are currently living or before COVID, living on the margins, but able to make ends meet. And now that those margins have started to grow, whether they've lost their precarious employment, whether a spouse is taken ill, we're now seeing that uptake. So overall, about a 30% increase. Some of our different partners are reporting different outcomes than that, and we're currently exploring that with them to determine what's happening now and also preparing for the recovery phase when we're going to start to see a little bit of a bump as some of these businesses that are declaring bankruptcy or shifting their modalities and employment needs. That's kind of driving unemployment up.
You mentioned partnerships, Graham, and I think that's key to a community success story. Tell me about some of the partnerships that Food for Life has been working with.
Yeah, it's been exciting. So Halton Food for Thought, one of our great partners in the school nutrition program, they brought their resources to bear so we can help reach into those families whose kids are now at home but don't have access to all those school nutrition programs. In community, we work with Halton Community Housing. They've really stepped up. We're now serving all the Halton community housing locations, mainly with door-to-door delivery. We know there's a lot of isolated, vulnerable individuals there. And those are just two of the many. I mean, we have 107 different partnerships across Halton. And all the major charities that you can think of, from Halton Women's Place, who I know will be joining later on, helping them out with some prepared meals, again, through another partnership, to the local missions and soup kitchens that we're still providing food for through our Good Soup Project.
Tell me more about the Good Soup Project. We did touch on it a couple episodes ago when we had Nouveau Taste on and Chef Damien. So tell me about that project. I think it's absolutely incredible, that work.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine soup in the summertime. It started with large bulk scale donations, industrial size donations that aren't appropriate or easy to get out to individuals. And as restaurants were closing, food service providers had a large bulk amount of food. So we took the initiative, we found an outlet, we found a great partner, again in Nouveau, and they were able to turn that into an easy to eat edible food product that's all prepared. Once we freeze it, it's easy to move. So seniors, people with accessibility issues are all really enjoying that. And families coming together to have a hot meal that they don't have to prepare in a time that's already stressful enough.
Tell me what the future for Food for Life looks like. And as you mentioned briefly, businesses that are closing or facing some challenges, what do the next 3 months to maybe even 6 months look for Food for Life as they support our community?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball. I can tell you what we hope will happen. We hope that some of these small business owners that are struggling take that step forward and know that they can receive dignified access and confidential access to food supports that may give them that extra $50 or $100 or $200 a week out of their budget that can help them restart their business. Small business is the economy, is the engine of our economy. For so long, they've supported us. Now it's our turn to give back. In community, what we really hope is that we're able to get people out to community-based programs. That social isolation is one of the big challenges with mental health. We need to get people out. We need to get them socializing even in small groups to help deal with the mental health challenge that's going along with food insecurity.
I thank you for all the incredible work you're doing, Graham, and the community and your team. And I just wanted to wrap things up. I love a good news story. I love a good feeling story. Anything that you can leave with us briefly on some of the work that you've been doing in the community?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, those are always the best. We do hear some of the sad stuff, but we've had individuals, kids who are repairing bikes, kids who are having scavenger parties who are donating their funds to us. From the service side, we're having families reach out that are saying, they haven't eaten in 2 days. They didn't know where the food was coming from, and now they're on a regular delivery program. The wishes have come from all ages, all demographics, all walks of society. And some of our major supporters that we never even knew existed before this are stepping up, like the Samuel Group, like individuals like Rick and Cindy Balaz, and others that have really stepped forward to help us fill those needs in community. That's just some of the touching on a minor part of it.
What an incredible good news community story. There are food heroes amongst us everywhere. Thank you, Graham, for your time today.
All right, thanks so much, Kim.
Today, I am joined by Carm Bozo from the Halton Women's Place. And Carm, I'd like you to sort of walk me through what happens at the Halton Women's Place and what your mission and vision are in our community.
Well, we are the only women's shelter in the whole region. So we operate two shelters, one in Burlington and one in Milton, 52 beds in total. And it's a facility where women who are escaping and need to escape abusive and violent relationships would come to. But it's not just residential services that we provide. We also provide transitional and support and housing support, which means that women who don't necessarily need to come into the shelter, but still need our counseling, our support resources, all of that in the community, they would still access Halton Women's Place and work with different counselors that would meet them in the community. Also, that program helps women who leave the shelter and want to continue that relationship with Halton Women's Place, and so they would still receive counseling that way. And of course, we have our great public education program, which has Ontario licensed teachers on staff to go into the schools to teach kids from grades 1 to 12 about healthy relationships, consent, media stereotypes, gender stereotypes, dating violence, and how that affects the law. Great resources for kids to learn as they grow how they can be a part of the solution in ending that cycle of violence.
So in March, we have COVID-19 hit our community and around the world, and quickly we need to pivot and change how we function. What have you seen and what pivots did you need to make?
Yeah, that really threw us all for a loop, that's for sure. Different policies and procedures had to come in pretty quickly. We, like lots of shelters across, I'm sure the world, but really like in dealing with Ontario specifically, saw that our numbers didn't spike in terms of crisis calls. We really did kind of think at the beginning that we were going to be like just really hit hard with tons of crisis calls. But women are isolated right now with their partners. Very hard to make that phone call to reach out. So we haven't seen our numbers increase, but what we have had to do was create spaces in our shelters to socially distance and isolate. So we actually had some women move on in the community with some of our help, and we're still supporting those women in the community in their safe transitional housing aspects. So we are supporting women that way, moving those women out of shelter so we can also physically isolate or physically distance each other So we have less women in the shelter right now. We have a couple of rooms that are dedicated specifically for self-isolation should a woman come into the shelter. So shelters are open. Our shelters are open. Our crisis lines, of course, continue to operate. But we did have to make some changes that way in terms of how many women we're going to have at one time, because we've been over capacity for so many years. So this is different. But also we've closed our kitchens. Probably about 6 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we decided to close our kitchens just because we needed to reduce the number of people in the kitchens touching all the stuff. And we now have a great program that the community has supported with restaurant deliveries on the weekend, especially because we are single shifted with counselors. Makes it so much easier to be able to provide restaurant meals for the women on the weekends. And then we have a cook that would cook during the week with great community donations as well for financial support to be able to do that. And that way we have somebody who's providing healthy meals and great meals for the women without them having to come down into the kitchen and do it themselves. So that has been a big adjustment for shelters.
I know that we're hearing throughout the news intimate partner violence and things to look out for and how we can help with families. Kids aren't in school right now. Teachers are usually the ones that are signaling this to you. What type of things can we as a community be doing to help you do your job properly and to help your work that you're doing there? And what can we be looking out for as a community?
Definitely a difficult time because there is not that third party to see the teachers, your neighbors. I would just really suggest that we continue to reach out to each other, reach out to those friends, those family members, those coworkers. If you're seeing something or hearing something a little different with your phone calls or your Zoom meetings or Zoom get-togethers, it's really important to just continue that connection, continue to reach out, ask certain questions. Are they different when their partner's around? Do you hear something in your neighborhood that maybe sounds a little off? It's okay to call the shelter and ask some questions about how you can support your friend or your neighbor, or you think something's happening. It's all anonymous, and our counselors are there for that kind of support as well, to help neighbors, friends, and family who have some questions and some concerns. Our shelter numbers are always there for that kind of connection as well, because people don't know.
I think it's incredible that you mentioned the community and the partnerships. For over 40 years, Halton Women's Place has been helping to support our community in times of needs. Just to wrap up, is there a small positive story? We like to end on a good note that you can share of community partnerships coming together for us.
You know what, right now, what I can say through COVID-19 is the generosity of our community. Fundraising is never easy, and that's my job. But right when COVID started, it was very scary to what that's going to look like. But our community in Halton is so generous with the reach out, the people who want to just say, I want to do something. And so that's why that meal sponsorship program, raised $12,000.
Wow.
Weeks. There is so much support and love for this community, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of those women and those kids that have to use these shelters and have to use our services, not just through COVID but beyond, because that's when we're really going to see our numbers spike up. When things start opening and partners start going back to work is when we're going to see our crisis numbers will increase.
Well, thank you, Carm, for joining us today and sharing the Halton Women's Place story. And thank you for the amazing work that you do in our community. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
I'm joined by Leslie Mansfield from the Halton Learning Foundation. Thank you for joining me today, Leslie.
Thanks, Kim.
I want to start off by talking a little bit about what the Halton Learning Foundation is all about. You're the CEO over there. You've been there for a couple years now. Tell me about your mission and vision for our community.
Sure. HLF's mission and our only purpose for being is to help the 65,000 kids in the Halton District School Board, of which about 10% or 6,500 live at or below the poverty line.
And so how are you fundraising to help the students? How are you working with the schools and the community to be able to do the good work you do?
We fundraise all the time to be able to make sure we can keep saying yes to all the requests. And especially in this time, we are fundraising in different ways, but we're still able to support all the different asks which come in from the principals to help their kids so they can continue learning, even though schools are closed right now. And we work with a variety of different organizations like community foundations and individuals and companies and wonderful sponsors like Cogeco and folks like that.
Tell me about what an ask might be that you would receive and what that process looks like. So pre-COVID,
Sure.
as the Halton Learning Foundation, what type of asks were you receiving, and how does that channel work and function through you?
We work directly through the principals and the school secretaries and guidance counselors, and they're the ones who identify the students who need some help. And it's discreet that way. We never know their names. We only have their initials. And before the pandemic hit, we were helping out kids who wanted to go on a field trip for $5. They wanted to be on a swim team. Maybe it might cost $60. They wanted to, maybe they needed some cafeteria vouchers for lunch because they didn't have enough money to be able to buy food or groceries in their house. We help with taxis back and forth from schools. If a child was in a shelter, we would make sure that they were able to be transported safely back and forth to their school. So items like that, hygiene supplies, toothbrushes, school supplies.
We know how important being in school and having that community for our young community citizens and young folks are. And COVID-19 hits and our kids aren't in school anymore. And obviously, I would imagine the increase of demand on Halton Learning Foundation would spike. Can you tell me about how you've pivoted and what that looks like since March for you?
Well, since March, we have increased our capacity. The support has increased for 400%.
Wow.
So it has been astronomical. And so we've done a couple things to go change our process. Before, we used to hand out gift cards through our offices or designated school locations to families and to students. And we always did that within about a 2-hour time frame. It's very fast. Now what we do is that principals or their designate visit our homes, and they come to our homes, and we have a plastic bag, a little Ziploc bag with gift cards in it, the name of the school and the initials of the child. And that support gets to the kids. Now it's in about 6 hours or so.
And what type of requests are you seeing? How have the requests changed from being in school to being at home all the time with families?
Food and hygiene supplies. That's been the highest one. We've always supported a lot of families and a lot of individual students with food requirements, but that was about 41 or 42%, and now it's half or even more than half. It's school supplies and it's food. I think food right now is about maybe 55 to 60% of our need, and school supplies. So it can be technology, it can be those little sticks, it can be paper and pens and everything, because a lot of the kids are learning from home, and you want to make sure that they're still supported even though in school is now out of school.
So one of the things that we talk about is what school will look like as we move through the summer and into the new year. What do you think that will look like for you through the summer and into September as we transition and move through the pandemic?
I think we're going to be taking our cue from the school board. If they say that we need some support from you on this week or that week over the summertime, we'll be there to help if we're able to with our funding. It has been an extraordinarily large draw on our existing funds right now. We have given out over 100,000 more than we gave out last year. So last year we gave out about 220,000 in just emergency needs for kids, and now we're over 335,000.
Wow.
So it's a lot of extra funds that have gone out, but we'll be there to help now and certainly in September when everything comes back in whatever way that looks.
One of the things we always like to do, Leslie, is end on a positive community good news story. Can you share something that you've had going on in the community with partnerships for moving forward?
Absolutely, I can. We just completed the Cogeco Give 5 Challenge, thanks to our partners, Cogeco. And I have to say, we had some amazing individuals all throughout Halton get us past the finish line, over $5,000 through donations on our website and text to give. And this went all across Halton, and I am so thankful and appreciative and extraordinarily grateful to everyone who is part of the Cogeco Give 5 Challenge. It was our first time doing something like this on social media, and it just ballooned, and it's been so successful. So we're really proud and really thankful.
It's amazing how our community has come together, and you really do get to learn about the other people in your community, and you see supports in all sorts of new ways coming together through social media, digital media. We live in an incredible community here in Halton. We're very lucky. Thank you, Leslie, for all the good work that you do at the Halton Learning Foundation with yourself and your team and community. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, Kim, and thanks for letting HLF share our story.
Thank you. Joining me now is Dara Clancy, the Executive Director of Distress Centre Halton. Thank you for taking your time today to join me, Dara.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly. Thank you for having the Distress Centre.
I would love to chat about what the Distress Centre is all about. I know you help across the Halton region. Talk to me about what the Distress Centre does and how they help our community.
Well, Distress Centre Halton has been here for over 46 years, and we help our community to better cope with loneliness, crises, and emotional stress. And as I said, we've been doing that for over almost 47 years between 2 locations.
Now, this is a line that folks can call into and access a volunteer to have conversations with on the other side. What does the process look like?
Well, we have 2 offerings in that we do have our call center where anyone, anywhere, anytime can call the center for support to have that human connection. And we also have our outbound program, which is called Telecheck. And that is a pre-arranged phone call of approximately 10 to 15 minutes to an isolated senior or someone struggling with their mental health or a caregiver that really needs some support on their own terms. So those are the 2 programs that we're offering right now.
So as we know, in March, everything shifts, things change as we go through COVID-19 pandemic, and you're a distress center. So the first thing we think of is folks in isolation or struggling as they move through the pandemic. How have things changed and how have you pivoted as a center?
Well, it was a quick pivot, I assure you. Having 150 volunteers coming into the 2 centers to work when the state of emergency was called, we did keep the center open as we were termed an essential service, but we needed to get most of our volunteers working home-based. So I think the state of emergency was called on the 17th. By March 23rd, we had our Telecheck program. Again, that's our outbound calls to our isolated seniors working from home with soft phones. And then by the 16th of April, we had our entire call center working from home. First time ever in 46 years. We had planned to go that trajectory, but COVID hitting so fast and furious, we moved as fast as it did. We said we wanted to be ahead of the curve, and we were.
I think one of the interesting things about the center is that you haven't missed a call and you've been able to pivot and keep yourself going and be there for our community. What types of calls are you receiving? Why would somebody call you? What might they want to talk to you about?
Kimberly, they call for everything. Now, of course, since the 23rd, since the 17th, it has been predominantly concerns about COVID, whether it was about, I don't want to give my child to my partner, we're separated, is that safe, to anxiety being heightened, to uncertainty of the future, to what should I tell my husband? I've been laid off and we can't afford this, financial concerns, bereavement concerns, not being able to attend a funeral, not knowing when this might be over. It's interesting, for the first 2 weeks that this happened, and I sit on the Halton Suicide Coalition, we all noticed that it went strangely quiet for about 2 weeks when this news was first announced. And then gradually, once the shock wore off and we realized we were going to be with this new world longer than we thought, the calls started to increase, and they've gradually been increasing each and every week that we've been in operation. Yeah. So everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talk often and we hear always in the news how mental health and how important it is for us to keep our mental health just as top of mind as our physical health as well. And as we move through the summer and into the fall and winter in isolation, we know this will be an ongoing discussion. So again, I thank you for the work that you and your team do. What type of people are on the other end of the line? I know that you have nurses, police in training that are looking to get some volunteer hours. Who are people calling and talking to when they call the line?
Well, just as you said, we do get a lot of people wanting to be a first responder because the volunteer experience looks good and it does give them valuable communication skills. We teach active listening, which is a huge learned skill that is so needed in the helping professions. And you need to practice it to learn it. So they get to do that here. We get a lot of psychology students. We get a lot of people that are looking for their second career, people that are leaving the corporate world to become consultants, but they want to have some people contact on their resume. We have people who are retired that want to give back to the community. And we have students. We only accept people after 19, so not students for their high school volunteer hours, but students that are at school going through their social work program, through studying to be a psychologist. So wherever you go, there we are.
And you're certainly reaching a well-trained individual on the other line to help walk through whatever conversation you need to have, which I think is important for folks to know.
It's huge. It's an intense 8-week program, which does include Safe Talk. So they have mentors, and it is an intense program, and they are ready to be on the lines after they graduate.
One of the things I always like to end on is a good news or a positive lesson learned story. Can you share with us something that you've experienced through this time of the community coming together, a good news story?
Kimberly, there are so many good news stories. It's hard to pin it down to one. Although this is a very uncertain time, we found with all of the community services, we have all pulled together. A little example, we're working with Meals on Wheels. They found that since they're just able to, for their own safety, leave the meals on the doorsteps. With our seniors, we're missing that connection, that human connection. So we're looking to provide notes that either to set up a phone call to talk to them or that they can call us. We've actually increased capacity where some agencies are struggling because we took our entire workforce, our entire volunteer force home-based. We have more capacity to take more callers, both on our telecheck program. So we're able to reach more people because we're finding there's a bit of a surge happening. So we've kind of future-proofed us for what could or may not be happening, since we know it changes every day. And I think the community is there to support Halton. We like to think we're keeping the heart of Halton beating through these times. And I think that all of Halton's communities are really helping that. So it's a very positive force behind the scenes when we call them our hidden heroes. There's so many people working behind the scenes to keep our community connected. And we're proud to be one of them.
That's an incredible story. Thank you for the good work that you and your listeners do. I know your slogan is here to hear, and we appreciate you being here for us. Thank you for your time today, Dara.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. We really appreciate it.
What an incredible segment we've had today with some amazing not-for-profits and charities in the Halton region that are all working together. One of the biggest things and the biggest takeaway for me is the amount of times we heard how impressed people are by our community, how our community is rallying and coming together. And that, after all, is what Community Cultures is all about. We talked about seniors, students, family, health, nutrition, food. How our community works together in support of one another is absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining us today for Community Cultures.